There are two major influences that significantly fuel the fires that are burning the world: disconnection and disregard. Both of these place and hold distance in the minds of people, which lead them to commit actions that are harmful to others without feelings of guilt, shame, or any consequences for their actions. Many that are subject to this distancing would change their actions if the distance was shortened. It is easy to throw plastic in the garbage carelessly, for it to be discarded somewhere out of sight and out of mind. However, it would be different if you had to keep your plastic waste on your property. In that case, how long would you have before plastic waste became a factor in your life? Surely, at the rate many of us consume, you would reach a point of unsustainability within a short amount of time, given that all plastic will accrue and remain. The only thing separating you from your plastic waste is physical distance from the moment it's discarded. Distance is a form of disconnection. Disconnection. The definition of the word disconnect is a lack of or a break in connection. The connection we're discussing here is the public's knowledge of many of the consequences of their actions. Disconnection is an illusion caused by natural and unnatural causes. The primary natural cause of disconnection is the sheer fact that we are physically disconnected from the topics at hand. We are physically disconnected from many of the greater systems which we get our resources from. On top of this, on the topic of unnatural causes, many of the powers behind such systems are aware of the necessity of the public's disconnection and therefore spend time and resources to intervene and perpetuate or strengthen such disconnection. The vast majority of the public has not spent time on commercial fishing trawlers, nor have many of us been inside a major factory farm, nor have we sailed for days through one of the many garbage patches in our oceans, or spent time alongside those who are deforesting the Amazon. And most importantly, we are unable to even see the true realities of these situations because systems are legally protected from having their practices revealed to the public. Again, on top of the physical distance between us and such products, many of the industries surrounding these systems have deliberately put into place distractions and shadows of doubt to increase the distance it would take for a consumer to make a connection between the product and its source, a connection that the industries would not like them to make. The industries use things such as marketing and suppression of information to ensure that only their preferred image is viewed by the public. These tactics take form as things such as false or misleading advertising and governmental assistance in the suppression of revealing the realities of the practices of such industries. Here is a quick example of subtle disconnection. When consulting a Google search at the time of writing for subjects such as top methane producers and causes of methane gas, you will be quickly met with a pie chart from the EPA. The chart presents the top causes of methane producers in 2020: 32% natural gas and petroleum systems, 27% enteric fermentation, 17% landfills, 9% manure management, 6% coal mining, and 9% other. This might ring the ear of some, but this will not necessarily ring the ear of the majority of people who are unfamiliar with what enteric fermentation is. Do people generally know what enteric fermentation is? I certainly didn't. So what is enteric fermentation, which causes almost 30% of all methane gases damaging this planet? Enteric fermentation is the resulting process of cows digesting food, creating gases, and passing such gases. So, ultimately, the two statistics provided by the EPA, 27% enteric fermentation and 9% manure management, can be simply put down as 36% cow waste. So, according to the EPA, hidden in plain sight, 36% of all methane gases are a result of cow agriculture, although cow agriculture is never addressed or expressed directly, but instead is euphemized and attempted to be passed in our blind spot. Because of the massive systems in place and the socio-governmental filtering of information that comes out, many of us, if not most, are disconnected from the reality of the source of the products we consume. We have grown in a society that, from a young age, subjects us to believe that farms all have green grass fields with a single red barn, sitting with the sun smiling happily overhead while cows laugh and relax. Take a walk down the dairy section of any supermarket, notice the bright labels with the aforementioned scene, the Red Barn Farm or something of similar innocence. This, in reality, is so far from the truth that it is closer to a lie than a euphemism. Disconnection speaks to an intentional misleading of consumers, along with the subsequent paradigm of the consumer. A paradigm that doesn't see a relation between the product they purchase and the origins from which said product comes from. Much disconnect, specifically in terms of the animal industries, is a result of the systems of marketing, media, and the suppression of accurate information by the systems in power. Many consumers are not aware of the realities of where their fish or milk comes from because their only source of information is focused on maximizing the profits of such industries, rather than transparently displaying the realities of their practices. If it's not free press, what is it? Due to colourful advertising displaying smiling tuna, giggling cows, and red barns atop of spanning grassy fields, many consumers are presented with a positive image in regards to the source of the products they purchase. These, however, do not represent the reality of the situation and are frequently either blatantly euphemized and exaggerated or simply completely untrue. Because of such advertising and branding approaches, consumers are put into a position where they wouldn't have to think twice about the source. The product shows happiness. They cannot and would not sell a lie, one might believe. But the truth of the matter is that they can sell a lie, and they do. There is a known intentional deceit in such practices. They are making physical efforts to hide certain facets of their practice in order to preserve the system they put in place. There is a disconnect between the images of reality and the images of their marketing, so much so that showing their actions would create a known connection, mending such disconnection in the eyes of the viewer, which may cause them to change their mind on the topic. Hence, why showing such realities is literally a criminal offence. There are legal protections that keep such images as standard in those industries, frequently referred to as ag-gag laws. These laws prohibit the distribution of information specifically detailing the actions of the animal agriculture industry, created as a way to suppress the leaking of behind-the-scenes information from animal facilities. These laws were implemented in order to make it illegal to interfere with the animal industries, including the showing of films or pictures of such facilities without the owner's consent. In 2002, the American Legislative Exchange Council, or ALEC, created the Animal and Ecological Terrorism Act, which created penalties for those who were engaged in animal and ecological terrorism, while also adding such persons to a terrorist registry. By their definition, such terroristic practices range from physically impeding the business practices to, more importantly, documenting the practices of animal facilities without the owner's consent. Now, of course, violence and physical impediment are obviously illegal and should not be condoned, but silencing the documentation of legal activities by legal businesses borders on, if not is, suppression. If they're not doing anything wrong, why hide? They're transparent already, aren't they? It's all legal, is it not? It is. However, maybe the problem is not on a legal front, so one must ask themselves why showing the public the realities of a legal business conducting legal business practices would be considered a terrorist activity. If such footage were to defame the owner or hurt the business, wouldn't that be in response to the public's opinion of the owner's actions? What is so horrific, so unjust, so heinous, that the public would shun and reject at the mere sight of? After all, we're civilized and advanced, so aren't all of our acts morally sound and optimized to minimize necessary suffering? If the public was connected to the source of these products, would displaying such information be harmful and therefore need to be made illegal? No, there would be no whistle to be blown. However, there is much that is kept behind closed doors, and there are laws that keep a lock on these doors, which leads to a lack of understanding of the true nature of such products. This is why there is a disconnect from the product itself. Because of the way it is advertised, presented and contrasted against the actual source of the product, there has to be a suppression of information for consumers to remain in the dark. This means that the image the business would like to show is maintained rather than the true face that hides behind the mask. The innocent do not hide their hands. The innocent do not move in secrecy, attacking those who aim to shed light on their actions. Such a disconnect from reality, especially at a young age, leads our lives down a path of disconnection and disregard. How many young children are subject to barnyard toys, bearing cows that go moo, pigs that go oink, one big red barn and a happy farmer with a straw hat and a pitchfork? Keep in mind, these toys would not be problematic if those circumstances were the reality of today's farms. However, in the majority of farm sources found today, this is absolutely not the case. We are not discussing local meat sources, which do in fact bear a resemblance to the red barn on a hill image, but rather the major factory farms that a majority of our meats come from. If, from the start, we are mistaken in our views of what actually goes on, how can we ever question and understand the weight of our actions? If the reality remains hidden to us, will we ever be able to change our stance on the situation? Such disconnection leads us to believe that nothing is wrong, that no wrong is being committed. And because we internally see no wrong being committed, we disregard the consequences of our actions, believing them not to exist.